We're going to talk about why parabolas have two sides. Remember when we were talking about equations that the number of solutions is always equal to the highest exponent? So when we have linear equations, for example, y equals x plus 1, the exponent, the highest exponent of x is 1. So there is simply one answer for x. So every time, and one answer for y. So every time I solve for one of the variables, I am only going to get one answer. If I know that x is 1, then y can only be 2. Okay, and in this case, we are using our answers and we are graphing them. Okay, now when we move on to a quadratic and we have our value is 2 of our variable, we now know that we get 2 solutions. Okay, and the reason that we get to 2 is let's look back at this y equals x squared. When we were solving for x, so we want to solve for x, we need to take the square root of both sides. Okay, because we have an exponent here, we do the opposite. So we are going to take the square root of both sides. Taking the square root of a square simply gives us the base, correct? When these two match, when your index and your exponent match, you simply have your answer underneath. However, when you take the square root of a number that wasn't already squared, we have to add that plus or minus, because we now know that it could be a positive 1, or it could be a negative 1, or it could be a positive 5 or a negative 5. Both would give us the same value for y. So when we are going backwards and we took the square root, we had a negative, a positive, and a negative answer. So we now have 2 solutions. So what happens is on our graph, instead of starting at 0 and then saying x equals 1, y equals 1, now we have when x equals 1, y equals 1. But there's another way to get 1. So if x equals 1, we know that y equals 1. Okay? But is there another way to have y be 1? When x is negative 1, y is also 1. So now we have those 2 solutions. So instead of starting at the origin or at where your graph starts on a parabola or conic, you're always going to have a vertex. And so that's technically going to be where your graph starts. So we're starting and we're moving a graph in one direction. But we are also at the same time starting it on the other side, and we are moving our graph that way. Okay? So every time we have a positive value, we also have a negative value, because that's our 2 solutions. So we are solving our line for 2 different sides, and then we are adding our curvature. So that is why a parabola has 2 sides. Think about whenever we cut through this conic section. When we cut through, we didn't only cut through the front side of our cone. We also cut through the back side of the cone in the same ratio. Okay, so the same curvature went through the front side of the cone as the back side of the cone, or if you have it straight, through the left side of the cone and the right side of the cone. So we're solving the same, we are just now getting 2 solutions, which is why our curvature goes the same on both sides. It is just like taking our paper. This is one of the vocabs of axis of symmetry. If we go straight down the center of this cone, everything that's on the right side is going to be equal to what's on the left. We could fold this over and it would match completely. We could fold a sheet of paper and draw one side of our curvature, cut it out with scissors, and we would end up with the same curvature on the other side.